Hey, this is lesson 9.4 talking about volume of prisms. And it says right here, the volume of a three-dimensional figure is a measure of the amount of space that it occupies. Volume is measured in cubic units. So when we did area, they were squared units, and now they will be cubic units. And we know cubic units, they'll be like this right here. They have that little 3 there. So centimeters cubed, or meters cubed, or feet cubed, something cubed. All right, volume of a prism. Well, the volume of a prism is the product of the area of the base and the height of the prism. So we can have a little formula here. Volume of a prism equals base, and that's a big B, which means the area of the base, times the height of the prism. Remember, the base of a prism doesn't have to be on the bottom, so we have to look to see what the base is. We find its area, and we multiply that by the height of the prism, which is the distance between the bases. All right, so let's look at a couple examples here. This is a rectangular prism. This one is actually sitting on its base. So we find the area of the base by doing length times width, because it's a rectangle, and then we multiply that by the height of the prism. And that's why some kids will already know to find the volume. They'll do length times width times height, and that's true. The length times the width is the area of the base portion, and then you multiply that by the height. This is a triangular prism. To find its area, which it happens to be sitting on the base again, so to find the area of that base, you do 1/2 base times height on the triangle here. You take that area and you multiply it by the height of the prism, which is the distance between the triangles. In either case, the volume equals the area of the base times the height of the prism. Their first example is a rectangular prism. So we'll take their dimensions there. We know that the formula, volume equals big B, area of the base, times the height. So we look, and this base is a 6x8 rectangle. So to find the area of a rectangle equals length times width. So we'll do 6 times 8, which is 48. So the area of the base is 48. And now we multiply that by the height, which is this 15 right here. And 48 times 15 would be 480 plus 246, 720. 720. And 720 yards cubed, because it's volume. 720 yards cubed. So let's see what they did. Base times height. The base, they got 6 times 8, okay, times the height, which is 15. For the base, they got 48 times 15, and yes, 720. The volume is 720 cubic yards. So we'll write cubic yards. You could write yards cubed like that. We could write 720 CUYD, cubic yards. Let's look at the second example. On the second example, it's still volume of a prism, but this time it's a triangular prism. And be careful, because this time the prism is not resting on its base. The base of a triangular prism is obviously a triangle, hence the name triangular prism. So we'll use the same formula. Volume equals big B, area of the base, times the height. And to find the area of that base, we're going to have to do the area of a triangle. So, remember, we look for this little perpendicular symbol. It's touching the height and the base of the triangle, 5.5 and 2. So we have 1/2 base times height, and it'll be 1/2 times 2 times 5.5. 1/2 times 2 is 1, times 5.5 is 5.5. There's the area of the base. Well, now we go back to our volume formula, and volume equals the area of the base, 5.5, times the height of the prism. And this, although it doesn't look like the height, is the distance between the triangles. It's the distance between the bases. It is the height of the prism, and it's 4. 5.5 times 4 equals 22, and it'll be 22 cubic inches. 22 cubic inches. Excellent. Well, they do give us a couple of on your own problems, as usual. And they give us one of each of those. We'll do those. So for number 1, volume equals base times height. For the base, area of the base, it's a rectangle, a square, but a rectangle, so length times width, which will be 4 times 4, which is 16. So 16 times the height, which is represented over here, labeled over there, I should say, just 4. And 16 times 4 is 64 feet cubed. Or we could write 64 cubic feet. For this triangular prism over here, we start the same way. Volume equals base times height. And this time the area is a triangle. So 1/2 base times height. Weird because we're saying base times height twice, but this is little b, okay, just a length. And this is the height of the triangle, not the height of the prism. So 1/2, and we look for this little perpendicular mark. It's touching the 12 and the 5. So 1/2 times 12 times 5. Well, 1/2 of 12 is 6, and 6 times 5 is 30. So the area of that triangle is 30, which is the area of the base. That goes right there. The 9 is the height, because it's the distance between the bases. And 30 times 9, well, 3 times 9 is 27, so 30 times 9 is 270. And we'll write either meters cubed, or we could write 270 cubic meters. At this point, I would recommend that you go to page 380 in your textbook and work through a couple of these odds. Make sure you're checking the answer in the back. On this one here, remember that it's not resting on the base. The base is the triangle. The 12 is the height of the prism. For number 7, no, don't get all freaked out because you're multiplying fractions, but do remember, turn these into improper fractions before you work with those. Do not try to multiply mixed numbers. This is nice because it is actually resting on the base. So number 9. And then number 11, the nicest of all, because they give you the area of the base right there. So you can just plug that right into the formula. It's really just base times height. So you're just multiplying those two numbers and getting millimeters cubed. Excellent. As soon as you're done with that, head on over to your journal page, which is journal page 200 for lesson 9.4.